Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Rollins Anthony, a former law student of Benson Dausa University and graduated with a CGPA of 5.0 and a learning enthusiast. Welcome back to Rollins Academy. So today I'm going to teach you a technique that will help improve your information retention and your recall. And this technique is simply called mind mapping. And I'm sure you have heard about mind mapping, especially if you're in the medical field, because it's mainly used by them. And especially if you're a lifelong learner like me and you implement many learning techniques, you must have come across mind mapping one way or the other. So today I'm going to teach you how to improve your mind maps if you already know this technique of mind mapping, or if you don't know, how to start implementing mind mapping in your studies. Now, mind mapping was created by a cognitive psychologist called Tony Buzan. And Tony Buzan specialized in many fields such as maths, English, and some other sciences. So mind mapping is a visual learning technique that involves the organization of information around a certain concept or idea using structures and branches and keywordings. So that's simply what mind mapping is. And the rationale behind mind mapping is that it copies the process in which the brain tends to remember and recall information. That is, it copies the process of neuroplasticity, making connection between previously known knowledge, new knowledge, and maybe making connections within the knowledge itself that you're trying to learn. That's within the information itself. So, yeah. Now, two scientific studies that I would like to cite that really brings home this idea of mind mapping. First of all, is the 2019 study by Raffat. The full name will be displayed by Raffat, which is the mind mapping technique, educational interactive approach. So now, this study was conducted using 40 nursing students, and the 40 nursing students were put into two groups, the controlled group and the intervention group. The controlled group were the ones who were told to use their normal method of learning to learn a specific information in which they were going to get evaluated afterwards on. And the intervention group were the group that were actually taught the mind mapping technique. So now in the intervention group, they had a 1 hour theoretical session of what the mind mapping technique is, and then they had a breakdown of a practical session. I think 30 minutes, 2 30-minute session. That's still 1 hour of a practical breakdown of what mind mapping is, and they told them to apply this mind mapping in different areas, different topics to try to recall the particular topic. So a test was given after both groups were familiarizing themselves with the topic, and the intervention group scored way higher than the controlled group. So, this study found that mind mapping is capable of increasing your information retention up to 65%. Now, another study that I would like to make mention to is the 2021 study done by Amelia, full name will also be mentioned above, which is the effect of mind mapping on students. Now, this study is particularly great because I love it because it's so practical and it actually gives how this mind mapping technique is able to improve someone's test scores and examination scores or grades or anything you want to learn. So now in this study, 23 students were picked, and there was no control group or intervention group like the former study, just one group of students. But what was unique about this study is that they organized two tests. There was a pre-test and a post-test. The pre-test was before implementing the mind mapping technique into their studies, using their normal study routine or study techniques or study tactic, and the post-test was after teaching them the mind mapping technique. So now during the pre-test, the the highest score was 72. The lowest score was 32, while the medium score was 53, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, yes. Yeah, so that was during the pre-test. So you can see their grades were pretty good, to say the average score was pretty good, the highest score was good, but that lowest score needs to be worked on. Then another test was given, that is the post test. That is when they taught the students the mind mapping technique and told them to implement it in their studies towards taking this particular test. And you will not believe the increase. So the highest score on this test, after that's the post test, after implementation of the mind mapping technique, was 96. Yes, the highest score was 96 compared to the pretest before the implementation of the technique. The lowest score was 72. It was 72. 72 being the lowest score of implementing this technique was the highest score for the pretest. And the median range of the test scores for the post-test was 84%. Yes, that's to show you that the implementation of mind mapping technique in your studies have staggering increase in your memory retention, recall, and can help you get better grades. So a common mistake that students mostly make when doing mind mapping is that, first of all, they use mind mapping as a form of note-taking instead of a form of active recall, that is towards retaining and recalling the information. Mainly, oftentimes when students are doing mind mapping, they have the information in which they are trying to learn, they have it open and they are drawing their mind maps with the information open, with the book open, whereas mind mapping is supposed to be a form of active recall, meaning when you are doing your mind map, it's supposed to be a process of you recalling that information, drawing it, and making links between those information. Secondly, overcrowding of notes. Oftentimes, when students are mind mapping, their mind maps are overcrowded. Too many informations on the mind map, making it less visually pleasing for the brain to actually remember. Number three, no visual cues. They leave out visual cues in their mind maps and mainly focus on the written words, and their mind maps get overcrowded. And lastly, there is no date. Yes, there is no date on their mind maps. The thing with mind map is that that is how your brain remembers that information or is able to record that information at that particular time. You don't know when you revisit it within maybe 2 days or 1 week later, your brain will further refine that information into a more concise and rememberable form. So you need to have, how can I say, a differentiation, a particular date. Oh, I did this today, I did this on the other day, and compare, and you see that, oh, I was able to get this information quicker, or I was able to remember this information better than I did last time, or I remembered it better last time than this time. So a date is very important. So now I'm going to show you how I do my own mind maps, and firstly, let's just break it down theoretically first. If you want to know how to do very good mind maps towards improving your information retention, just remember the acronym B.R.A.V. First of all, the B, that's B.R.A.V, that's brave, if you want to put it like that. First of all, the B stands for bulletin, meaning your informations are supposed to be represented in bullet points, nothing more. Bullet straight to the point. The R is for recall, meaning like when you are doing your mind maps, you actually have to impute a form of active recall in them. Back when I was in secondary school, I used to write out all the questions within a particular topic that I want to, how can I say, answer while I was doing the mind map. Later on, when I started implementing the use of flashcard, I just have my flashcard app open and I just look at the question while I'm drawing my mind map. So I'm answering questions that I've already prepared for myself. So that is the recall part of B.R.A.V. Next thing is A, which is arrows. Yes, one key thing with mind map is that you need to indicate where the information is flowing from or going towards. So the thing, how I stumbled upon implementing arrows in a mind map, imagine a stream, just different streams of water just going in different direction. If you don't know the direction in which that stream is actually going to, your brain will not know the direction to follow when going down that stream. So that's the essential point of using arrows to denote the process in which your brain will remember that information. Like, okay, we're starting from a definition, going to a concept, going to another concept, going to another concept. So implementing this use of arrows in your drawing is really good towards improving your mind maps. The last one is V, and V stands for visual cues. As I've said before, and I've even made a video on it, that is on the use of visual cues to improve your memory retention and all. Implementing visual cues in your mind map is essential towards information retention, especially towards the long-term memory and towards getting good grades and passing exams. So yeah, those are the key things that you need to remember while preparing your mind maps. B, bulletin; R, recall; A, arrows; and V, visual cues. Although there's color coding, but you'll see how I implement that when we go towards the example. So now I'm going to use two examples to properly explain this method. One example from the medical field and one from the legal field, because I'm a law student and mostly this is for my law students out there to help them improve their information retention. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So now this first example is going to be for the medical students out there, not really for them, but I love their topic, so I want to use it. So yes, mind mapping session, heading in black, subheading in green, content in blue, important facts in red. That's what I call color coding. Yes, I use color coding a lot. Whew. Let's go. So the topic is on cardiac arrest. Just a simple topic right there on cardiac arrest. I feel like I have to start towards the left. Okay. So firstly, what is cardiac arrest? Cardiac arrest is uh cardiac arrest is simply an electrical issue that stops the heart from pumping blood. That stops the heart from pumping blood. So what happens during cardiac arrest is that the heart stops beating, or the heart beats so fastly that it stops pumping blood. And when the heart stops pumping blood, it will affect other organs of the body, and the person could die in a matter of minutes. But how big the person could die in a matter of minutes because blood is needed to deliver oxygen to other parts of the body. Now, next question. So right here, drawing the arrows for indication of how the information is going. So nextly, heart attack differentiated from cardiac arrest. So a heart attack generally is when, I'm going to just draw a nonsense diagram here, is when, let's say this is a heart, is when the arteries to the heart muscles are blocked, when it is blocked. So that's what leads to a heart attack. While a cardiac arrest is when there's an electric issue in the heart that stops the heart from pumping blood to other parts of the body. Pumping blood. So now what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of cardiac arrest? Symptoms, I think they are 8 in number. The first one is just going to run through this fast. Chest pain, loss of breath, gasping for air, for what's question. So symptoms we have chest pain, loss of breath, gasping for air, dizziness, lightheadedness, nausea, sudden weakness, and heart palpitation. Next question. Causes of cardiac arrest. We have the first one is coronary. The first one is coronary. So the first one is coronary artery disease. The second one is the second one is congenital or acquired heart issue. The third one is change. The third one is change in structure of the heart, probably due to a heart attack. Sorry, the fourth one, extreme injuries. That's extreme injuries. That's the fourth one. The fifth one is severe infection. That's the fifth one. Sixth, I think it's either severe loss of breath or severe breathing. That's six. And then seven is toxins. Drugs, toxins that are not good for the heart. How do doctors diagnose this condition? So cardiac arrest is sudden. It happens sudden. So there's no much time to actually diagnose the condition. But four main things happen this during a cardiac arrest. Firstly, there's loss of consciousness. Secondly, no pulse. Secondly, no pulse. The thirdly, the patient stops responding. And fourthly, the patient isn't breathing. So these are the small symptoms that doctors will see on the spot that will preclude that the person has cardiac arrest or the person is going into cardiac arrest. That's even better. So yes, so during this process, the anybody that's a first time responder there, probably a doctor there, will have to use an electronic no electro we have to use an the person will have to use an electrocardiogram. I think that electrocardiogram is all those shocked in. Seems like our front page is really used up, so I have to turn this. Boop, 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 boop. I love doing that. Okay, so how do doctors diagnose these conditions afterwards? So when the person is finally made stable afterwards, when the person is finally made stable, the doctors run some certain tests. First of all, they run your usual blood test, then genetics test, I think. Yeah, then blood test, genetic test, or heredity test also. Then they run an echocardiogram, which is ultrasound. Then a coronary angiogram, sorry, medical students, which is an X-ray. Yeah, which is an X-ray. Lastly, our concluding fact: how is cardiac arrest treated? So it's treated to CPR first of all, which is cardio. Firstly, is done through CPR, which is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Secondly, to an AED, which is an to an AED, which is an automated external defibrillator. So medication and IV medication is usually given to the arm, and lastly, the person is taken to the hospital. So yeah, this is basically all for cardiac arrest. I just picked a topic randomly. There's little visual cues which I don't find too pleasing, except this one, which I love. Maybe later on when I'm going to it, I could have added a visual cue for the how cardiac arrest is treated, and also how the symptoms of cardiac arrest to properly really remember that information. So that is all. Let's add our dates. But we gotta leave this date blank for now. I'm gonna leave these dates blank for now because who knows when this video is gonna come out. But we'll add our dates. Yes, that's all for the first example. The second topic I'm going to use is for my law students out there, and we're going to treat a topic in evidence law, which is electronic evidence. So again, this is the mind map session, headings in black, color coding, subheadings in green, contents in blue, and important facts in red. Yeah, hope I got this. So let's start. Firstly, I'm going to try as much as to just say what my mind is actually thinking about and going to as I'm doing this. Firstly, we have meaning. So electronic evidence can be defined as like evidence that can be, any information of probative value that can be stored or generated in binary form, meaning any information that can be generated to the computer or to a computing devices and that is admissible in court. So yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, sorry, I just continued using black, which I was not supposed to. Next one is on next one, I'm gonna keep the green down. Next one is yeah, the act. Does the act define electronic evidence? So the act does not expressively define electronic evidence, but however, it can be seen in section 84 that electronic evidence is any evidence generated from a computing device, or yeah, computing device. Then the interpretation section gives us what a interpretation section gives us what a computing device is, and the rest what falls under a computing device: computers, laptop devices, phones, etc. So that can be seen in the interpretation section. Next one is Answer that. Next one is hence is such, put in my arrows, admissibility now. Hence is such information admissible. That would be in accordance with section 84 sub B, I think. Yeah, sub B. Section 84 sub B states that the electronic evidence will be admissible if the conditions for admissibility under section 84 sub 2, section 84 sub 2 are met. Yes. And when they are met, the evidence will be admissible without recourse to the original copy. Yeah, that's one. Next, what are the conditions for? Next one is, what are the conditions for admissibility? So yeah, I'm going to draw my arrow. Sorry. I make this arrow more thicker than that one so I can know the flow of the information. As you can see, I'm going clockwise, it seems. So what is the condition for admissibility? That can be seen under section 84 sub 2. Yeah, that can be seen under section 84 sub 2, and simply states that the condition for admissibility of the electronic evidence, first of all, the information contained in the document was first of all, the information contained in the document was produced by the computing device during its regular course of business. That's the first one, produced. Second one is that the information contained in the document or the evidence was supplied to the computer during the regular course of usage. And then the third one, that the computer was working perfectly fine, that during the regular course of usage or the production of that document, the computer was working fine, working well. Then the last one is that the information contained in the document was supplied to the computer during the ordinary course of usage. Ordinary course. Yes, so I would like to add some visual reference. So yeah, I told you the funnier the better. So I'm going to add a computer. Just follow me and say this is a computer right here. To denote these 3 points: produced, supplied, working well, and lastly, ordinary course of business. Let's go. Ordinary course of usage. Now, further on, what does section 84 state? Where's my black? So section 84, let me put it in red. Section 84 sub 4 states that the evidence produced, that is the electronic evidence, must be, should I say, corroborated, or must be tendered with a certificate of compliance and authentication. As you can see, I shall probably left more space. A certificate of compliance and authentication. And what that certificate just shows is it identifies the electronic evidence and how that electronic evidence was produced, and that all the process, that it complied with all the necessary conditions as seen in section 84 sub 2. So now a supporting authority when talking about electronic evidence. Again, I go back to draw my arrow. Sorry, go back to draw my arrow. Now, supporting case law. That will be the case of Cobo versus Dixon, if I'm not mistaken. Dixon. and that's a Supreme Court case that states that when the conditions of admissibility are met, the electronic evidence will be admissible in court, and that's a Supreme Court decision. So now, electronic signatures or digital signatures. Digital signatures, just so not really part of the main flow of the topic, but it's also good. It will still get you your marks too. That's why I put it in green as a subheading. So yeah, let's go. Digital signatures is provided in section 84 sub D. Yes, section 84 sub D provides the use of digital signature. And again, what makes a digital signature secured? First of all, at the time of it being affixed, it is under the exclusive control of the signatory. So I'm going to put here exclusive control. Then secondly, that it is stored and fixed in a manner as prescribed. Stored in a prescribed manner. Yes. So yes, that's how digital signatures are deemed to be secured. Lastly, concluding points is affidavit. Yeah, affidavit. So that is provided in section. Question is, what section makes for electronic affidavit? Now we recognize electronic affidavit, and that's provided in section 108. 108 provides for electronic affidavit. So that's our concluding points right there. Now, to end this video, since we're talking about mind mapping, I want to bring something that the creator of mind mapping himself said. That is Tony Buzan. He said, learning how to learn is the most important skill in life. Now, see you guys next time, and remember to be productive.